stressful conversation. And I'm here. Well, maybe I won't share my screen. Give me 1 second here. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I think for many people, mindfulness can be, minimalism and decluttering can be a difficult conversation. So what I thought I would do is just have a few slides with some helpful thoughts as we move through it. I hear from lots of folks that, you know, the clutter in their lives is overwhelming. And so this is an area where they would really like to make a change. And I heard from many people that this idea of mindful minimalism was very strange. Like, how could being minimalist be mindful, or how can getting rid of junk be mindful? And I have to say that for me, it's one of my most mindful activities, and it allows me the most mindfulness in my life. So that's why I like to put the two together. And I was going to start by just telling you a little bit about me, which I always forget to do. So I am Jessie Mahoney, and I'm a pediatrician. I am also a yoga and mindfulness teacher, and I know many of you have come to yoga, and thank you for doing that. And I hope to see you guys on Sunday, because it's going to be really fun. My son is doing it as a Mother's Day present to me, because I've been wanting to co-teach with him, so I think it'll be amazing. I'm also a trained life coach, and I work with physicians and parents, and we had a great parenting session yesterday. And all of my coaching is kind of based around living a mindful life and approaching your life with intention and purpose and simplicity. And life coaching is actually all about mindfulness and getting rid of all the clutter and all the extra stuff in your mind and emotional issues, and also physical clutter. And many, many people find when they go through coaching that they also just start shedding things, whether it's weight or stuff or anxious thoughts or resentments that they've been holding on to for a long time. And so this idea of minimalism came to me because I love minimalism, and it actually just brings me so much calm and so much peace. So I think it's an area in which the coaching and the mindfulness and the minimalism all intersect really beautifully. So that's a bit about me. I think many of you know other stuff about me. I have been a pediatrician for 20 years. I've been working in physician wellness for almost that whole time. And I am doing a lot of work with Nicheng on the Mindful Healthcare Collective. I'm also do coaching for individuals and for groups, and I'm coaching trainees now at Stanford and doing all kinds of really interesting stuff with this coaching work that I think tells us that we can just learn so much and grow so much from that work. And so I encourage you all to learn from it. And I know the folks that I coached yesterday really had some eye-opening aha moments. And so that's really fun. So hopefully tonight we'll do that. We'll see how much coaching we get through versus how much of just how mindfulness and minimalism go together. And we may end up needing to do a little bit more. So I wanted to start by sharing that sort of an organized and minimalist life is actually about awareness, and it's about intention. And so that's how it overlaps with mindfulness. It's about living deliberately. And so I wanted to start with a moment of connecting with our intention and being deliberate and being mindful. So I put up my favorite place, which is Ocean Beach, where I like to walk and like to look at the ocean. And you might recognize this photo. It's the same one on the Facebook page for those of you that are members there. So I want to just start by having us ground our feet into the earth. And
Jessie,
yes.
Jessie, I see you, but I don't see the ocean.
You don't see the ocean. Does anyone see the ocean? No. Well, that's a bummer. All right. Well, you can just look at me then, because I've tried to fix it twice, and I will try one more time, but let's be mindful for the moment. Sorry about that. The ocean is really beautiful if you can see it. You can imagine it in your mind. So as you do that, ground your feet into the floor. and your sit bones into your seat. And stretch your spine up tall. Take in a deep breath. And a big out breath. And another in breath. And another out breath. Just take in a couple more breaths here, consciously and intentionally. Notice how you feel. And then bring your hands to heart center, press them together. And connect for a moment with how you want to feel. What's your intention about how you want to feel in your life, specifically in your house and in your spaces, in your cars and in your office? What's the feeling that you would most like to have as you move through the world? Connect with what that feels like. Breathe in deeply again. And once again, breathe in. Breathe out. Pay attention to how that feeling feels in your body. What do you notice? Does it move? Does it just stay in one place? Is it soft? Spacious? Then take in a big, deep breath through your nose. And a deep out breath. One more big, deep breath in through your nose. Let all the air out. Then you can slowly bring your hands back to your thighs and open your eyes. So I'd love to hear from folks in the chat box. What's the feeling that you would like to have as you move through your life and in your house, and in your cars, and amongst all of your stuff? Because really that's what the minimalist life is about. It's about how you want to live your life, not so much about not having anything, although that can also be helpful. Ooh, lots of beautiful thoughts. Peacefulness and beauty, lightness of being, peacefulness, positivity and grace, clarity, spaciousness, joy, happiness, space and breath, safety. That's a good one. So thinking very intentionally about how you want your space to be is how you're going to get spaces that feel like that. And so for most of us, when we're overwhelmed and stressed in life, that's what our home looks like. So if you look around you, your home is often a reflection of, as we say, what's going on in your mind. And so when you're living unconsciously and just moment to moment and reacting, your home is often filled with sort of chaos and a lot of unusable stuff. And so this idea that your house is a direct reflection of what's going on in your brain, and potentially your office, like when you're at work and you're bouncing from thing to thing and you have piles, we all used to have piles of charts, but you know, even piles of whatever it may be, a lot of people's offices are not this sort of clean and zen space. And what we can choose to do intentionally is to connect with all of these thoughts around peacefulness and beauty and calm and contentment and happiness, and create spaces intentionally that feel that way. And so that's the idea around mindful minimalism, is the thoughts that are in your brain are what actually create your reality in your life. And so we often feel we give all this power to all the stuff that's there. But the stuff is actually just stuff. And really what we get to choose is how we feel about the stuff. So I like to help people connect with what's your why, and your why of having a lovely, calm space for a lot of people is going to be different. I think it's mostly about how you want to feel. And so that's where this connection to how do you want to feel in life is very much a guiding light post. And so thinking about how you want to feel as you spend time in your home or in whatever spaces that you are. Now that why needs to be compelling, right? It can't just be, it needs to be a true compelling vision that you want. And so it needs to help you get through the noise and the drama of getting rid of all the stuff. So we have all this stuff, and most of us make a lot of the stuff mean things. It's a special thing from someone or this person or that person. And yet it's also just stuff. And so keeping it has a cost and getting rid of it has a cost. And so a lot of it is being very mindful and intentional about that space that you want to create. It also requires clarity. And to me, mindfulness is a form of clarity. Being really clear, again, on what your intention in your life is we often think that all the stuff around us has some power, and yet you can be very intentional and have a very empty space and be very purposeful about it. And so realizing that what things look like is very much a reflection of what's going on in your mind. And doing that work to clean up your mind can be super helpful. The other thing is that, and this is an Eckhart Tolle quote, which I particularly like, which is, changes sometimes look negative on the surface, but you soon realize that the space being created in your life is for something new to emerge. So this idea that's often hard, it feels bad to get rid of something that was from someone in your family, things like that. And yet getting rid of this stuff is actually a beautiful thing in that it's creating the space. So my why around having I will call it a minimalist house. I know there's a lot of people that, minimalism, what does that mean exactly? And it means something different to everyone. To me, it just means not having your life filled with stuff that's meaningless. And so to have everything have meaning. And it doesn't mean that you can only have 2 pairs of pants or no place to sit. Although I am known, my kids say, like, if it's really important to you, don't leave it out because mom will throw it out. And that's how I approach it, because to me, the spaciousness that I get from an empty space is just very healing and brings me peace and calm. And that's how I can live life more fully. And that's a huge part of my mindfulness. I can't relax in a space that has all kinds of stuff. And so I learned that because once I started clearing it out, everything shifted for me. And so I think just even starting with one small space can really make a difference. So my why of cleaning things out was to provide a room to breathe. And when I'm home, I have 3 kids and a busy life. And when I'm home, I need space to breathe. And so having less stuff for me created a space where I was able to breathe much more deeply. It created calm, and it created a place to be. And so realizing that your home is your space to be, and it's your space to live in this world. And now we're all getting so much more of a chance to experience that. And so just realizing, what do you want it to look like? And being intentional around that. And then once you get rid of stuff, it gives you this space to create what you want. And that's what I like to think of the space as. It's like the space for the dreams and the space for the desires and the wishes. And when you have stuff falling out of everywhere, there's no space for that. So I think that's a really helpful way to think about it. You're creating space for dreams and space for desires and space for wishes. And then the best part about it is that when you have less stuff, there's less to put away. You have more time. You don't have to clean it. You don't have to buy it. You don't have to spend the money on it. And you have more energy because you're not managing all this stuff. And that's actually sort of a very mindful way that if you just take things out of your life and create that spaciousness, you get so much more back than the stuff that you are potentially experiencing, which doesn't mean, again, you don't have anything. It just means you have the things that are of meaning for you. And that's the mindful piece, is what is of meaning for you. It doesn't have to spark joy like Marie Kondo or anything, but just what has meaning for you. And that's the mindfulness piece. Does this mean something personally? So to get rid of stuff, you kind of have to see all the stuff as stuff, is how I like to think of it. Anne says, stuff management is a major part of my day. Yes. So Anne, your stuff is stuff. And Anne, I just wanted to call out, Anne is the one that asked me to do this. So Anne's trying to purge a bunch of stuff. So I love that thought, that stuff is stuff. By the way, Nicheng, it says it's not recording anymore. I don't know why on my screen. I don't know if it's recording on yours. It's sending me an alert. Okay, brilliant. Maybe you're recording that. So we keep this stuff because of all the thoughts we have about this stuff. So most of us don't think of the stuff as stuff. We have stories about the stuff, of who it came from and what it means and why we need to keep it. And there are many stories about how much we paid for it, that we might need it someday just in case, all of this stuff. But really it's just stuff, okay? And then there's this other quote that I like to share, which is, keeping all the good stuff does not add to great. It just adds up to too much stuff. So we often keep all the little things thinking like more of this is better, or if I have 2 of this, or if I run out, and it's just more stuff. Someone's smiling on there, which is, I think it's very true. So this idea that sometimes letting go is an act far greater than hanging on. And I put that in the mindful mantras today, because to me, it's a beautiful thought. We often have such trouble letting things go. And yet when you let them go, you often get so much back after letting them go. That freedom and that spaciousness can really, really change things. So this idea that letting things go can bring you far greater power than hanging on to them. So does anyone have, yeah, other people say it's recording, so I think it's just on my end, which is fine. So some thoughts that get in the way, I like to talk about limiting beliefs. And so we think, many people, I don't know what to do with it all. I'd love to hear your limiting beliefs, but I don't know what to do with it all. I don't know where to begin. I don't know how. I don't know if I can let it go. People want to share what their limiting beliefs are. I think it would be really useful for other people to hear and learn what those are. So if you want to type those in the chat box, I would appreciate hearing that, and I think it would be nice to share that. I'm too tired to go through everything. I have to keep things, all the kids' art. Okay, things I want to read, busy juggling the many things I can't stop to evaluate. Yeah. Fear and regret of letting go, what things might mean. And so I have so much stuff, I don't have time to go through it. Yeah. So what I'll say is, and I think, what if I need it later is another one. Things that were loved things, precious memories. Yeah, yeah. And no time. Okay. So some common themes. And I think this thought of no time, we all as physicians have a lot of scarcity around time and scarcity around resources. And a lot of that was trained into us as physicians, right? We didn't have enough time as residency. We don't have enough time to see patients. And so that's our default mindset. And yet what I would say is, when you get rid of stuff and you create spaciousness, just like for me, it's the Shavasana in yoga, right? You feel like you have endless time when you have that spaciousness. And so bringing spaciousness into your life, you'll spend a lot less time managing all the stuff, and you have a lot more time for living your life. So this idea that when we call it in coaching, which is indulging in confusion, and indulging in these thoughts, Nicheng is smiling, about I don't know what to do with it all, or I don't have time, or these things are so meaningful, that we're just allowing our brain to spin around that rather than seeing the possibilities. And again, I would urge you, just connect back to that intention. What's your intention? Your driving thought about how you want to live your life and how you want to enjoy your space. Do you want to be managing stuff, or do you want to be peaceful and content? Miriam says she's using it all during the pandemic. I do think our habits have changed, but it's also a really beautiful time to think about all the stuff that you have that you don't use. And so a couple of minimalism is about making decisions and about things, and then you can say goodbye and you can let them go. And remember this thought of letting things go can actually be much more powerful than hanging on to them. And why are you hanging on to them? We're usually hanging on to them for fear of this scarcity mindset, like what might happen if I don't have it. I've often said to myself, well, you know what? If this is really that important, I can get it again. I can buy it again. Usually you don't end up buying it again, but that has helped me, like not for super expensive things. There's this thought that it's not any more wasteful to let it go than to keep it and not use it. So if you have it in a box, you're still wasting it, right? Because you're not enjoying it. And when you have so much stuff that you can't see it, same thing. So if you're not using it, you are wasting it, whether or not you have it in your space or not. And just because you keep it doesn't mean you're using it. It's just sitting there. And so being very conscious about what you're using. Because even having it sit there, it's taking up space. That space for dreams and possibilities is what I like to think of. And then there's non-judgment around it. There's no wrong decision about what you decide to do with something. You can keep all the stuff. Just be intentional about it if you want to live in a house full of stuff. But I think, again, we give the stuff the power. And if we're all here trying to practice mindfulness and create more space in our lives, that's really one of the primary purposes of mindfulness. How do you want to live your life? What's your intention? The other thought is, if it's valuable, you should keep it. But it's okay to get rid of it if it's valuable, because value is really only a matter of whether it's valuable to you. So if it's of value to you, meaning of true meaning and purpose. Sorry, there was someone trying to get in. True meaning and purpose to you, then you should keep it. But if you're just keeping it because it's valuable, my mom has a lot of things that are valuable. I don't know, she thinks they're valuable. She's not ever going to sell them, so they actually don't have any value. But it's this idea that they're valuable, and yet they have a value in your space as well, right? So it sounds like there's a lot of conflict in families about getting rid of stuff. So that's interesting. And finding a way to, I'm going to think about that one, because I don't know, it's a challenge, right? Because you can have your intention, but if your partner's intention is different, what you can start with is having a room that's sort of your spaciousness. And I will say that when I did this in my bedroom and my closet, I just got rid of all my stuff. And originally my husband was like, what are you doing? And then all of a sudden, about 3 months later, he went through all of his stuff, because I think seeing how easy it was and how like spacious it was, and I didn't say anything. He just did it. And so you can start by doing your own stuff. Like, you don't want to get rid of other people's stuff, but making a room or a space that's yours that feels very, very empty and mindful can be very, very helpful. So Stella says, I have the story in my head that I'll let some of this go to someone who will use it, or that I'll donate it. That's true, but the thrift shops are closed right now. Shelters, for sure, there are people donating stuff to people, and Miriam has this Buy Nothing group, which is really cool. You can post in your neighborhood and people give away stuff, and you can give away stuff. But remember, if you have it and you're not using it, you're wasting it. So if it's sitting in your garage, you're still wasting it. And so better to have it out of that space and donated. A lot of people say, oh, I have to sell it, or I have to, it's worth this much. It's not worth anything to you if you're not using it. And so again, this idea of just being very intentional, and all the thoughts about what other people will think, what other people will say. You can't control what they think or say. And so it's really sort of, how do you value your own space? This other thought that I like is your relationship with an item can be complete. So it can be something that was really special to you. We often have boxes of stuff that we saved. And it's like, you can have had that relationship with whatever it was. It could have been your favorite thing, but now it's complete. I'll give the example of like a kid's old teddy bear that you've kept for, 20 years. Your relationship can be complete with that. And you had this relationship and it was special, and then you can move on. That doesn't mean if there's something that's really meaningful that you really want, you can keep, but not everything. You don't have space for everything to be meaningful. And so it's that mindfulness and intention and being thoughtful about it. And I don't think it means that you have to get rid of your memories. If you have so much stuff that's memories, again, you can still have the memories without the stuff. Some people take pictures of special things if they want to do that. That's one way to do it. And but all the stuff doesn't bring back the memories. And so figuring out, there's a cost to having it, and like there's the cost benefit. You get rid of it, and there's a cost of getting rid of it, and a big win. And so you get to choose. So the other thought I have is oftentimes we clean things out and then it refills. And so, and I have had that happen to me a few times. And so this idea of wanting what you already have is really powerful. And to me, it's sort of the ultimate in mindfulness, wanting what you already have. So not needing more, not needing two of anything. It's wanting what you already have, not wanting the thing that's better, the thing that's slightly different. It keeps you from accumulating this stuff and being happy for the things that you have. And when you've created a shelf that's empty, allow it to be empty. You don't have to have every shelf and every closet full. And I reconnect here again with the intention. So allow the empty shelves, allow the open closets, make room for the air, make room to breathe. And it's this idea of space creates clarity, and it makes room for the things that you want. And if all of your space is filled with stuff that you already have, there's no room for figuring out what it is that you want to bring into your life. So some practical tips, and then we can address some of these questions too. If you have two of anything, you don't need two of anything. It comes from this old school like scarcity mentality, but you really don't need two of anything. So that makes it easy. Whenever you have this, I might need it just in case, that's the scarcity mentality popping up. So keep that in mind. And you're all doctors. What if it breaks? You shouldn't keep anything that's broken either. That's actually on the list. So we often keep things that are broken for unclear reasons, but you can get rid of those. If it breaks, you can all get a new one. That would be the other thing. So donate the functional one. And if and when it breaks, but it might never break. And then you'll have your drawer that has three. We had like 2 and 3 of all these things in our kitchen drawer, and you don't need it. How not to buy more books. Yeah. So we get stuff and we want stuff because of how we think it will make us feel. And so you buy books because you love the space. My guess is you love the spaciousness of reading, for example, and books make you feel good. And so realizing that that's what you're looking for rather than the book itself, because you're not reading the book, which isn't to say you shouldn't read the book, but buy them. And when you finish that book, we live in a world where you can get the next book when you finish that book. And so trying to do things sort of one at a time instead of the stacks and stacks, because then you're always looking for the next thing because of how you think it will make you feel. Some people like the hunt. Okay. And again, I would connect back to your intention. Is your intention for your life? Do you want to be, the hunt is about the dopamine release when you find the good deal or the thing that you want. And when we shop, we get a dopamine release from bringing those things into our house. There's another concept in coaching, which is around buffering. And as physicians, we're exceptional at this. So buffering is doing something because it makes you feel good. And so we buffer with food, we buffer with alcohol, many of us buffer with shopping. Many of us here buffer with Facebook. And so this idea that we do it and we get this dopamine release. And so a lot of the shopping that we do and the hunt is literally because you want that dopamine release. And then you go on to the next one and the next one. And that's how you end up with all this stuff. And so realizing that that's why you're doing it, and then coming back to what ways can you get that dopamine release or self-nourishment in other ways. So can you go for a walk? For me, mindfulness and yoga is the thing, right? That releases all those endorphins and the breathing, and you start to feel that spaciousness. So it's another way that you can switch that. And a couple of people are saying that the pandemic has made it much easier to see how little you need. And the recession is going to help us with that as well. And then certainly if you give stuff away, then you're not accumulating the clutter, but we do want to make sure that it's something that the other person wants. We all have those people in our lives that are decluttering their house by giving it to all of us, whether or not we want it in our house. And it makes them feel better to give it to us. And just noticing that, like that's why they're doing it, is because it helps them feel better. So I always like to think, yeah, it's Miriam's mom. It's a lot of people's moms and grandmas where they deliver stuff to you and I thought you'd really like this, and instead it just becomes more stuff for you. So you're fully liberated to connect with your intention and say thank you very much, and then do with it what you want. Because again, there's a cost to keeping it and a cost to letting it go. So the other thought, decisiveness is a skill that you all have as a doctor. So you can be decisive about what stuff to keep. We think that we can't and we don't want to, but you can be decisive about it. You know how. You're all exceptionally talented at being decisive. Exceptionally talented at seeing scarcity and all the things that you might need someday, or in a pandemic, you might need it. And also exceptional at making decisions. You just do them in different places, right? So bring the decision-making home and keep the scarcity at work where you're looking for the 1 in a million, the zebra, right? So realize where you're using these things in different places of your life, and be mindful about what our brains have, all these thoughts going in our heads all the time, and be mindful about sort of mind management. And what's your mind telling you? Oh, my mind is telling me that I might never be able to get another, measuring spoon, so I better keep 3 sets of them. But there's a cost to having 3 sets of them in your drawer, right? Then everything's falling out and you can't find anything. And then you get another one because you can't find it. And it just adds and adds. And what I will say is this stuff just is this tremendous weight. And when you start to get rid of stuff, it can really make a difference. So a couple of other tips. Don't keep anything that's broken. There's no need for anything that's broken in your life. You probably aren't going to fix it. So if you're someone who fixes things right away, great. But if it's broken, you probably don't need it. And have the things that you love and that make you feel good. That's actually, someone was putting in there, like dopamine release. When you have only clothes in your closet that fit and you love, it makes life simple. You get all this extra time. You don't have that decision fatigue and the digging through fatigue. And so it's actually a time saver, an energy saver, and a money saver. So as we enter into a recession, which keeps coming up, the scarcity mentality can be part of it, or it can be an incentive to kind of simplify and see how little you need. And it can be an opportunity to share this stuff with others. There are lots of people who are, will take your stuff and give it to people who need it. But if you're not using it, you're wasting it in your own house. So if you have, a lot of people will go through their shirt drawers, right? And they have 65 shirts. How many days would that take you? You probably have more, because then you have dress shirts and you have t-shirts and you have all these things. And so just realizing how many of those things that you don't have. And it is hard to admit that you don't have time to fix things. That's true. And just accepting that, right? It's this acceptance and allowing. We have all these ideas of all the things we're going to do, but be intentional. What do you want to spend your time doing? So, and it doesn't mean, if things are very special, that's a meaningful thing. So connect with what the things mean to you, but why are you keeping them? And what's the cost of keeping them versus the freedom and the spaciousness of getting rid of it? So a process for sort of evaluating things would be becoming aware of all the stuff you have and actually knowing what's there. And then asking yourself, is this thing, is it serving me? Do I really want it? And then is it out, like we often have things that we really like, but they're actually like outdated or broken or something like that. And so if If it's really serving you and you really want it, then you keep it. And if it's not, if it's outdated or broken or something like that, or it's not serving you, you're not using it, and I would say using it, then you get rid of it. And then you can create space for the things that you want. And then one other thought, which is that in your storage should be for stuff that you use in different seasons. It shouldn't be for stuff that you never use, right? And a lot of people pay for storage, and you're paying money to store your stuff that you never see. And so just think about, again, it's this stepping back and being intentional about what you want to do. And people are asking about hobby supplies and things like that. And I would say, you know, Christmas decorations you use, but again, look through it each year when you put it away. Like, what was the stuff you didn't use this year and you haven't used in 5 years? Why are you keeping it? And be mindful. Does it serve you? Do you want it? Does it have meaning? Does it fit with your intention? And again, the intention of how you want to feel, because all the things we do because of how we want to feel. So I'm scanning through the chat box and there's lots in there. I think my strongest message would be this intention. I'm happy if someone wants to get coached on an issue or a struggle they're having with letting things go. Anne, do you have something you want me to coach you on? Because I know you requested this. You don't have to come on.
Sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. It just occurred to me since you requested this, I'm guessing you're struggling with something.
Yeah. So I'm home with my 4-year-old, and I just feel like I'm looking at stuff all day. Like normally I was able to go to work and, you know, take an OB call and just kind of get away from it. And I had house help from a house cleaner that came intermittently, and she's not working. And it's just been this like reality of like, I'm face to face with my stuff and starting to ask myself that question, like, how do I want this place to feel and how do I get there?
Mm-hmm. And so I would recommend starting with the, how do you want it to feel? Mm-hmm. Right? Because we're completely driven by our feelings. And so if you want to feel more calm and peaceful, then the decisions to like, just chuck this stuff become much easier. Right? Mm-hmm. And the other thing I found is like, you get rid of a whole layer of stuff and then you start to, it's actually, so for me, that's the dopamine release. Like, wow, there's all this space and it feels so much better. And then it's like, I don't need that either. And I don't need this either. And an easy way to do it also is to move it out of the space. So you create these beautiful spaces. So I move it to my garage and then it sits there for a bit and then I get rid of it. And so like every 2 months we'll take stuff to Goodwill. And so I have a pile, and then if someone needs to go fetch it back, or I put someone's thing there that they really need, there's still chance. And so that sort of makes it easier to make that decision. But you do OB calls, so you're really good at making decisions, right?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty good about decluttering, and I tend to over declutter, and it's a source of conflict between me and my family.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's a struggle because we can only control ourselves, right? And yet we share space. So you could have a conversation about how people want the space to feel, right? And that people can have their certain spaces. So say your kids want to keep stuff, they can keep it in their room, right? And then, because some people aren't bothered by space and other people are really bothered by a sense of space. And so you could decide as in a family, intentionally, we're going to have our main living spaces be more empty, but in each of our bedrooms, we can do what we want. The other thing that I found is that we often don't realize how good it feels to have the space. And so when you can create that space and move stuff temporarily so people can get like feel how good it feels, then it's kind of like people trying mindfulness, right? They're very skeptical until they try it and then they feel great. And it's like, oh, let me in on that, right? So you're creating this mindful space where there's room to breathe and room for air. The other thing is this idea of intention in creating what you want. And so for other family members, I feel, ask them what they want, right? What is it they want for their space? And, you know, sometimes they're happy to get rid of stuff when it means that they will have this opportunity to run around more because there's more space, or move around more freely, and to breathe more freely. So I think this connection with how they want to feel in the space, and shared spaces, I think, are spaces where we can be more mindful, because they're spaces where we're all being together. And then if people have different ideas of what space should look like and how much stuff they want to keep, that can be a different conversation. So what was the feeling that you want to feel?
I want to feel calm, spaciousness, and I want to feel like when I come home, I'm not just scanning the room to find out, like, what do I have to do? What do I have to put away? Like, I can just be.
Yeah. Do you think that, you know, we can't change what your family will do or what they'll think, but I wonder if sharing that intention with them, because I bet other people actually want to feel that way at home too, right? And it may look different in your 4-year-old. It might look happy, or it might look free, or that she might want to dance, or she might want to, you know, be able to run or whatever, but that having a shared intention around the space and what it feels like to be at home. Because if you think about it, like our shelter space, it really is about what it feels like to be there. That's my thought. Yeah.
I really appreciate it. All of this information is so helpful.
Good. Anyone else want to raise their struggle? You can just, the easiest way here is to just unmute yourself and speak up. And then tell me who you are so I can find you, because there's a number of people there. And if no one wants to, I'll answer a couple of these questions. How do you let go of the guilt associated with the money that was spent on the stuff you're now decluttering? I've struggled with this one a lot. And the answer is that it's like the sunk cost fallacy, right? And so the point is, you can't go back, you can't unspend the money. And so again, it's the mindfulness right here, right now. Are you using it? It's wasteful to keep it if you're not using it. And so the money is spent either way. And to me, the lesson, or that I can carry forth is, well, this was, you know, I'm learning from this, right? There's no failure, as we say in coaching. There's just, you did it right, or you're learning. And so you learned from it that this was not a good expenditure of money, and you're going to not refill the space once you get rid of it. And that's the learning. Or this other thought that it's served its purpose. It was enough. So either it was not useful at all, because we've all wasted money on things, but keeping it doesn't make that money any less wasted, or there's no less guilt around it. And imagine you can have spent that money to feel good if you get rid of it, right? It's just part of the process. I think that's part of the mindfulness, that non-judgment. So non-judgment of the stuff. We spend all this time feeling terrible about all the stuff that we have. The emotion around getting rid of it and creating space, we just want to avoid it. And so there shouldn't be judgment around whatever you've got, right? It's very mindful. It is what it is. This is what we have today. And connect with that intention of how you want to feel. As comfortable as someone's cat up there. That's well, there's cats. Everyone here has cats today. So, and then let me just see, with kids, things accumulate. And what I'll say about kids is, the less stuff you have, the more creative they are with it. And it's amazing what kids can do with toys. And so in the United States, we think they need all this stuff. And in other countries, they have a lot less stuff. And less stuff creates space, again, for creativity. And so really figuring out how much space do you want in your life, and what do you want for your kids? To me, again, it's around intention and how you want to feel and how you want your kids to feel. So for me, I like to inspire creativity. And so that can be really helpful in this idea of, we don't want to have too much stuff, or anytime a toy comes in, a toy goes out. You can also have that idea around a book. So I still like to read paper books, which is very non-minimalist, but I read them and then I give them to someone else. That's my new thing. Like as soon as I'm done, I have to give it to someone else to read. And then I hope that people come around and give me books. And so then you're not at least stacks of books that you have to get rid of. It's this idea of passing it along, that feels better. So same idea with toys. If a new thing comes in, you just move it along. And I think you notice, like when you clean a child's room and you organize it, all of a sudden they come in and their brain explodes. And so you're giving yourself this gift by getting rid of stuff to give you that space and creativity and ability to breathe. Let me just see if there's anything else in here. Oh, elaborating about the storage. So the thought on storage is, and again, I sound like a broken record, but it's the mindfulness around what is the purpose of your storage area. We have stuff stored there that we're just storing. It's one thing if you live in a climate where you have your, I have my ski stuff stored and I live near the beach, so we have surf stuff, but like you use it at certain times of the year and you want stuff there that's in constant use at different times. So you're not using it as a place to store stuff for the future. If you're paying for storage, is that in alignment with your values, and is that your intention? Because even the stuff that's hidden in places has a weight on you because you still have this stuff, right? There's a comedian who has a very funny thing about all the time we spend managing the stuff and boxing up the stuff and moving the stuff, and it carries this weight. So the idea is being mindful about the stuff. The stuff is really just stuff. We make it mean. Even some heirloom from your grandmother is still just that thing, whether it's a little, I don't know what it would be, but a little doohickey, right? We have so much value to it. And yes, that's part of what the world is, but if you have 50 of them, then it doesn't mean the same thing. And so just being thoughtful about how you want to fill your space and how you want to live your life. To me, it's the thought that gets you to the feeling you want to have. And that's your driving force. Yeah, we all feel guilty about getting rid of stuff. And it's hard. And yet, what if you kept, if you have a collection, I have a teacup collection of my grandmother's, and I kept 5 of the teacups, but not all of them, right? And they're not even teacups that anybody would use anymore. In fact, they probably have a lot of lead in them. And so this idea that, I can see them, and I kept my favorite 5, and then I got rid of the rest of the collection, because otherwise they're just filling up a whole cupboard. And so giving yourself something to connect to. So I still remember my grandmother when I see the teacup, but I don't have the guilt of, she had shelves of these. So figuring out how to do that. How to split a collection. And I think the idea is, it has more to do, someone's asking about the science, of the stuff and having weight on you. And it's the thoughts that you have about the stuff and knowing that the stuff is there and what to do with the stuff. And as you open the cupboard, the stuff falls out, or you have to dig to find the stuff. And so I think it's that impact. I don't know that there are studies about the stuff, but I know that kind of like mindfulness, when you breathe and create space, your body feels completely different. And so that's what I would suggest here, is it's similarly creating space in your environment. And for me, it's that, I would say the science is the neurologic impact of all the stuff is less, right? And the moving it is less. And so you have, that definitely would still have a physiologic impact. And again, I think it is hard to get rid of this stuff. The struggle is real to get rid of this stuff. And yet, connect back to your intention of how you want to live your life. And a lot of people feel like there's scarcity in time, and yet many of us take time to do self-care in other ways. We take time to be mindful. It's the same type of thing of making choices. You only have 24 hours in a day, and that's limited, and you choose how to spend that. and you only have certain amounts of space around you, and you can choose what to do with that space. And it isn't that minimalism is better. It's what you want to do with your space and how you want to feel in your space. And that would be your driving why. And every decision can be a hard decision, but you can also decide to make all the decisions an easy decision, right? Getting rid of stuff can be easy. It's usually the first few things that are hard, but once you start letting things go, you actually can get that dopamine from that and that space, and that can be a way of feeling better as well. And this is a big area, right? Lots of people have lots of issues with stuff, and hoarders have different issues, and there are lots of psychological attachments to things. And so again, that's where I say bring in the mindfulness. Just be mindful about the stuff. Don't let the stuff be in control. You get to choose how you want to think about it and what you want to do with it. And you can choose to keep it all if that's the space that you want to have, right? You don't have to get rid of anything. But realize that keeping it has an impact, just as getting rid of it has an impact. And you get to choose what you want to do. Because your grandmother's teacup is just a teacup, and it's what you think of it and how many you want to keep and how many are meaningful. And whether someone was saying as you separate out things that are part of a collection, well, you're the one, it's the thought that you have that you shouldn't do that. That's your manual about keeping the collection together. But you can just as easily separate it if you want. Usually we have the thought that we shouldn't, and there's all the shoulds and shouldn'ts in life for some specific reason. Gina does have a thing about scarves. You have a lot of beautiful scarves. So I think that from the mindfulness perspective, we all have overload from everything. And so again, it's this idea we get to choose and we get to make decisions about how we want to live our life. And for those of you that are here, you've made a decision, it's out because you're in the Mindful Healthcare Collective, that you want to live a more mindful life. I'm going to make that assumption. And so you just get to decide about all of it, how you want to approach it, and being mindful about it and not letting all of the stuff and all of the information overload and all of these other things take over. Because that has a cost, just as like scrolling on Facebook has a cost. It's the same type of thing with all this overload. And so really being clear about what you want to keep, it's that clarity. It creates space for clarity, and it takes clarity to do it. So allow your brain some space to make those decisions. So Lisa is talking about the 60,000 emails, and she can't just delete them all because what if there's an important photo or email in there? And that's the sort of scarcity mentality again. And there are people who would get rid of them all. You can archive them, you can keep them, or you can delete them. And if you're never going to look at it anyway, what's the chance that you're going to find the one in 60,000 that has the important thing? But again, it's up to you. You get to choose, and just realize the decision you're making. But there's a cost of the what if, and the cost of the I might need it, or just in case. And realize that that's your brain's auto thinking. And what's the cost of that in your life? So it's this mind management is sort of not letting your brain run rogue with those thoughts. So I think we should take a deep breath, close our eyes, put your feet back on the floor. Breathe in deeply through your nose and breathe out. Breathe in once again and breathe out. Take a couple breaths just with your breath back at its normal rhythm. Notice any tension or stress that might be coming up from all the thoughts of all the things we can't do or we don't know what to do with. And breathe in deeply and let those go. What if you did know exactly what to do with all of the stuff? Bring your hands back to heart center. Press your finger pads together. And connect again with what your intention is. How do you want your space in your life to feel? Can you carry that with you as your guiding light as you make decisions about what to keep and what to let go of? And remember that there's more power often in letting go of things than hanging on to them. You can bring your hands back to your thighs. Slowly open your eyes. Come back into our Zoom room. So I wish you all luck with getting rid of a few things if that's what you choose, but definitely luck in living a life where you feel the way you want to feel. And use those feelings as your guiding light in making decisions going forward. And I'm happy to answer any questions if people have them. You can reach out to me. My website is just my name, www.jessiemahoneynd.com. And I'm happy to answer questions there. I have a blog and I write a lot about minimalism and mindfulness, as it turns out. So if you want to sign up to get those blog posts, they might be inspiring in terms of helping you move forward on this. And I'm happy to help any of you with this or with parenting or any other life struggle issues that might come up for you. It's what I love to do from a mindful perspective. So let me know if you have any questions. I'll hang on for a little bit, and we will see you on Thursday or Saturday or Sunday. Thanks for joining. Bye, Julie. Bye.